Today, I'll show you how to survive a health system collapse. When it hits the fan and doctors, hospitals, and 911 aren't available, even if you have zero medical knowledge and no fancy equipment, transforming you into the cool-headed medic others can turn to for help. Just like it did for over 52,000 other true patriots who are also saving thousands of dollars on their health bills, crisis or not. Thanks to the direct experience of one of the world's most amazing doctors, who overcame a medical collapse firsthand when supply shortages, overloaded emergency wards, empty pharmacies, and infrastructure failures like blackouts were simply the norm, facing and dealing with threats that few medical professionals in our country's system have ever encountered. The exact same threats you'd face in a crisis. All to give you the ultimate 80-20 guide to survival medicine that will keep you and your loved ones safe and healthy, even if others suffer around you. And I know that suffering. I've been through it. It's hard. It will bring a grown man to his knees. I'll never forget these words. If his heart stops, should I try to bring him back? Or do you want me to let him go? The doctor kept his voice steady, but he was in turmoil. He'd never lost a patient to this condition before, but this time it was different. And it was different for me too, because the heart he was talking about was my brother's. My dear brother passed away that night on a cold, hard stretcher in the hallway of an emergency department. He was 29 years old when he walked through the doors of the ER that day. John couldn't imagine just how badly the U.S. healthcare system was about to fail him. And he loved his country. He served 2 tours in Afghanistan, came home with a Purple Heart, and of all things, it was a simple salmonella infection that took him out. So how did my healthy baby brother get cut down in the prime of his life by something as banal as salmonella? That might be lethal in a third world country, but not here. It's easy to treat, as long as you have access to timely health care. Hi, my name is Henry Morris, and I lost my brother, my flesh and blood, the boy I raised to be a man, a decorated war hero, to a salmonella infection in 21st century America. It's something that just should not happen. Not in our day and age, but it did. And this tragedy made me realize when SHTF and everything in our society grinds to a halt and no doctors are around, we're left to fend for ourselves. And knowledge is life. Knowing how to spot an early symptom, knowing how to treat something as common as food poisoning or a simple bruise, knowing how to fix a broken bone or a dislocated shoulder can make the difference between life and death when first responders are nowhere in sight and help is not on the way. So this tragedy forced me to look for an alternative health safety net for me, my wife, and my 2 little boys. Something I wish I would have done earlier because if I did, my dear brother, John, might still be here with us today. So stick with me for the next 5 minutes and I'll tell you all about my encounter with a doctor out of this world who led me to change the way I think about surviving a no doctor scenario, giving me this missing element every true patriot should have. The ultimate guide to survival medicine that will ensure your family's health and safety through the turmoil that's about to hit. You'll learn how to heal almost any injury, short of surgery, like gunshots, stab wounds, fractures, or burns. How to treat and avoid infectious disease that could leave you disabled, disfigured, and grief-stricken. How to accurately diagnose a health problem, radiation poisoning, frostbite, a heart attack, and subtle threats even professionals miss. And you'll get step-by-step advice on what to do if you're first on the scene in an emergency when every second counts to keep someone breathing. And I'm going to reveal something pretty troubling. John's real cause of death. A devastating 40-year trend that threatens the future of every single American, already claiming lives like John's. A real healthcare system time bomb that's about to detonate right in the middle of the US. And I'll explain what you must do today to ensure that you and your family not only survive, but thrive in the upcoming unrest heading our way. However, let me be clear. I'm not suggesting you skip the doctor if one's available. My aim is to give you a foolproof health safety net. One I hope you'll never need, but will always be there if you do. One I wish I had 2 years ago when I lost John. But there's nothing worse than watching someone you care for pass away, or scream in agony from an accident, injury, or illness that's easy to fix if only you had the right knowledge. Neither is there a better feeling in the world than the gratitude from somebody whose life you've just saved, or the happiness of a loved one spared from a final goodbye. So having the ability to make pain, sickness, or discomfort simply vanish with what feels like basic no-brainer know-how is pure gold. But before we get into that, I want you to know what got my brother killed in the first place, why it happened to him, and why, in a way, it might happen to you too. So, what I'm about to tell you right now, you might find disturbing.
The media is not saying a word because it would generate mass hysteria and chaos. But the real truth I'm about to expose will make even the most tough-minded patriot's blood boil. At the time of John's tragic and needless passing, hospitals everywhere were overwhelmed by a virus raging around the world. Out of all the hospitals within a helicopter ride of where he was when he fell ill, none had the resources needed to save his life. There were just too many sick people to give everyone the treatment they needed, even if they died without it. But this isn't about the virus. This is deeper than that. What happened to John is the natural evolution of a frightening pattern that's been weakening the American healthcare system for over 4 decades and putting people just like you and me at risk of losing our current access to medical care. Medical professionals, doctors, and nurses are sounding alarm bells in every state across the nation, including the state where you live, with red alerts about the future of your health being issued right now by experts across the political spectrum. Our entire healthcare system is in a state of collapse. No one knows how long we have until it falls apart completely, and most people have never even given any thought to what they would do in an emergency if there was no way to quickly get help from a doctor, a nurse, or an EMT. Most of the concerned patriots who try to stay ready for anything are actually overlooking something vitally important. You may know how to raise animals for food and butcher your own meat. You may know how to grow and store your own fruits and vegetables. But if you don't make a plan for your health, then all of your survival skills put together are worth nothing. If you're not prepared for this, then you may as well not prepare at all. Now, since you found this page and you're still watching, you're probably one of the realists. That means you're very aware of the fact that your and your family's future safety may come down to the actions you take right now to prepare. And some people think it's eccentric or even flat out crazy to spend time and money preparing to survive SHTF scenarios. Me? I think it's crazy not to prepare. No one is safe from natural disasters or any of the other catastrophic events that could befall any and all of us in the future. Whether it's foreign terrorists, domestic terrorists, civil war, EMP events, or nuclear attacks by China, Russia, or North Korea, all of these possibilities are very real. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either in denial or uninformed. It's enough to look at what's unfolding right now in some parts of the world to get a good feeling of what might go down on a global scale. The good news is you can prepare for the chaotic and dangerous crisis heading our way. And in this short presentation, you'll learn how to do just that, because the surprising medical knowledge I'm about to share has actually been used to save thousands of lives, even in the poorest countries, where healthcare is still at 1800 standards at best. And even in places like parts of Africa, where healthcare and hospitals don't even exist. So stick with me for the next 5 minutes, and I'll tell you everything you need to know about keeping yourself and your loved ones safe and healthy when immediate professional healthcare is nowhere in sight. As I said, my name is Henry Morris. I'm a retired Army veteran and writer for Survivopedia.com, one of America's leading disaster preparedness websites. Over the last 10 years, we've become the go-to source of survival knowledge for millions of Americans. So you'd think we'd have seen it all. But even we were horrified with just how vulnerable and close to collapse our health system truly is. You probably remember watching the news back in 2020. Every night we saw another set of refrigerator trucks packed from top to bottom with dead bodies because the morgues were all full. I'll never forget the image of simple wooden coffins being lowered into a mass grave in New York City. I'll never forget the videos posted by exhausted and traumatized doctors and nurses explaining how the daily nightmare at work was crushing their spirit. And I'll never forget thinking, God forbid if a loved one got sick and needs rapid treatment from a doctor. But as I and the rest of the country were still in shock watching this on TV, hoping it wouldn't happen for me or my family, a lot of people found themselves in the wretched spot of actually needing to see a doctor. And one of those people was my brother, John. And John was tough. He grew up on the streets of Baltimore, making our way through a hard childhood, moving from one foster family to the next. And I was always there for my little brother, always looking out for him, taking the blame, and even the beatings sometimes. Doing my best to keep him away from the ugliness of the world we found ourselves thrown in. As he got older, John wanted to follow in my footsteps, and he joined the military. He served 2 tours in Afghanistan and was honorably discharged with a Purple Heart. I was so proud of my little brother, and I was so happy he was back home safe. All until the evening of March 18th, 2020, the worst day of my life. I was mowing the lawn when I saw my wife slamming the back door and running towards me. I knew something was wrong. "Honey, it's John. He's in the hospital. It's really bad." I couldn't move for a minute. Shocked. It must be a mistake. I talked to him on the phone a few days ago. I rushed to the hospital only to find out that I wasn't allowed in due to quarantine rules. I was less than 100 feet from my dying brother, and I couldn't even see him. I begged the nurses in the ER to tell me what's going on. I wanted to know how my 29-year-old brother ended up in critical condition at the hospital, when only 2 days ago he was happy and healthy. The doctor came out to talk to me. He was exhausted and devastated, and I'll never forget what he asked me. "If his heart stops, should I try to bring him back? Or do you want me to let him go?" Let him go? How? I mean, why? Why is he here? What happened? "He's dying from something I never would have thought I'd lose a patient for. A salmonella infection. Unfortunately, he got here a day too late and is severely dehydrated, to the point where it has affected his brain. We're keeping him on life support, but there's nothing else we can do for him. And right now, and I'm sorry to say this because I know how absurd it might sound, he's just holding up a bed for someone else in need. So again, if his heart stops, should I try to bring him back, or do I have your permission to let him go?" I never would have thought I'd be in this position. In 21st century America, I was looking at signing off my brother's death certificate because of a common salmonella food poisoning. But we didn't get to finish the grim conversation. A nurse came out for the doctor. John had passed away. My heart was pounding out of my chest, like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I was speechless, and I couldn't pull myself together. What the doctor asked me, and then the nurse telling me he's already gone. I don't remember getting home that night from the hospital. I was in so much pain, and nothing could take it away. Our whole childhood flashing before my eyes, both the good and the bad, everything we had to go through to make it in life. I loved him, and I miss him. After the funeral, I just wasn't myself. I couldn't believe this could happen. How? How did salmonella get to kill my brother, a decorated war hero, where bullets, bombs, and the Taliban couldn't? I was angry. I felt this choking cloak of anger clouding my judgment. What would happen if my wife or my little boys needed medical help? Will they find themselves dying on a cold stretcher like my poor brother John? And the one simple and rotten answer is, yes, they will. Our medical system is crumbling, and an outbreak far more deadly might be right around the corner. Something with the 90% kill rate of a disease like Ebola versus the less than 1% we saw in 2020, which, if it acted in a similar way, would kill over 40 million Americans. That's enough to shatter society. So I knew I had to find an alternative source of medical knowledge, something that could help me build a health safety net for me and my family, giving us the peace of mind that we'd prepared for if an emergency hit and 911 would turn into a dead line, and something that would be reliable both in the comfort of our home or, if God forbid, we had to bug out and leave everything behind to save our lives. Now, being an Army veteran and specializing in wilderness survival, I had good knowledge on how to tackle some of the medical emergencies one might face out in the wild. But being prepared for a full spectrum of day-to-day medical conditions, that wasn't something that I was really familiar with. I knew how to provide first aid, but nothing at the level I needed for my entire family. So I reached out to my contacts in the survival and off-grid community and even to some of my old Army pals. I wanted to know more about what was causing all this, and what I could do to reach my goal of having the backup medical knowledge required to keep my family safe. And what I found out shocked me. We're looking at a profound nationwide doctor and medical staff deficit within the next 3 years or less. 2020 and 2021 were not normal years for our health system, but this goes way before a worldwide virus pushed medical systems to their breaking point. The seeds of this upcoming catastrophe were planted back in 1981. That's when a U.S. government commissioned study was published warning of an upcoming doctor surplus they expected to see in the next few years. And the government took the results very seriously, because it all came down to money. Since the average doctor graduates medical school with significant debt, an abundance of doctors would drive wages down, and this could leave thousands of doctors unable to ever pay off the cost of their expensive education. So the government began taking steps to counteract the so-called doctor surplus. They withdrew federal funding for medical scholarships and residency programs. They raised the standards of residency training in order to make it harder for hospitals to offer residencies at all. And med schools also took action to prevent the doctor surplus. The schools froze admissions and cut student enrollment. Plus, they made an agreement to discourage the opening of new medical schools. Just a few years after the report was published, the number of students who graduated from med school began to drop. And as a result, the greatest country in the world now has fewer doctors than almost any other wealthy country. I was stunned when I found that out. Thanks to a series of bad decisions by government bureaucrats, our tax dollars went towards limiting the number of doctors who graduate from American medical schools. And now, we don't have enough. Our healthcare system has been broken for years, and this is just one of many reasons. Soon, it will collapse completely, and it will be harder to access professional medical treatment. At times, it may even be downright impossible. I call this the healthcare scarcity crisis. You don't need a crystal ball to see that millions of hardworking Americans just like you and me are in critical danger. We're at risk of losing access to basic healthcare. Doctors and nurses are abandoning the industry in droves. Over the course of less than 2 years, in 2020 and 2021, 1 in 5 healthcare workers abandoned the industry. If you think a healthcare workers' strike is bad, imagine what it would be like if they never came back to work at all. But if things continue as they are right now, there's a good chance that there just won't be any hospitals anymore. In February 2020, before the virus came and turned the world upside down, 1 in 4 rural hospitals was at risk of shutting down permanently. That's 453 hospitals in total. Geographic areas with no hospitals are sometimes called hospital deserts, and 1 in 5 U.S. counties fit this description in 2021. And if you think you're safer because you live in a city, I've got bad news because urban medical centers have been closing too. Across the entire country, from Providence Hospital in Washington, D.C. to St. Vincent Medical Center in Los Angeles, city hospitals are shutting their doors forever, despite the fact that the population keeps going up and up. And when you contemplate all of these hospital closures, along with the other factors in the healthcare scarcity crisis, the future of access to medical care in America looks very grim. If hearing all this scares you, it should. And as bad as all of this sounds, it could get even worse. Because what happened in 2021 in some parts of the country would become a nationwide standard when the next, more severe pandemic or disaster hits. As the virus was raging, healthcare providers were forced to implement crisis standards of care in parts of Alaska and Montana, along with the entire state of Idaho. No one chooses to use crisis standards unless it's as a last resort. That may sound extreme to you, but it's exactly what medical professionals are trained to do in the military. It's called reverse triage. That means they decide who's least likely to survive, and then they just don't treat them, unless, by some miracle, the situation changes fast enough to give these unfortunate people a chance. And that's how John ended up in the morgue. And I'm not blaming the doctors or the nurses. They were working in literal virus war zones, and they did whatever they had to do to save more lives. They're heroes, just like John. I'm blaming the system. I'm blaming the 40-year government-induced shortage of doctors that got John dying from salmonella. Our healthcare system is not going to be with us for much longer. Not in its current form. And the way I see it, the only person that will always be there for me is me. And if I don't have the right information to keep myself and my loved ones safe when it hits, then my family and I are as good as dead. That means I have to understand the basics of caring for myself and my family in a crisis situation, and I have to have a plan for what to do when the healthcare system collapses. So what could I do? Thankfully, my friends that I reached out to from the international survival community told me about a hidden medical gemstone. And it's not a what, but a whom. A man who many regard as a medical genius. His name is Dr. Radu Skirtu. Because although he now works as a hospital surgeon in France, Dr. Skirtu first earned his stripes in the harsh medical systems of Eastern Europe, in post-communist Romania, where chaos was king. In terms of geography, Romania is less than 6,000 miles away from the United States. But if you measure the distance and the quality of their healthcare systems in the 2000s or earlier, they may as well have been on different planets. In those days, the healthcare system in Romania was so under-resourced that it was like being stuck in another century, and not even the 1900s, more like the 1800s or even earlier. I'm talking no electricity, medicine, basics like plastic tubing, or even disinfectants, since corrupt officials would often water it down to nothing. A system where doctors and nurses fled for other countries in droves, inflicting horrific staff shortages, and where victims usually wouldn't die of their injuries, even non-threatening ones, but instead perished from infections they'd picked up in the hospital, while crammed two to a bed, alongside rats, cockroaches, or the corpses drunk orderlies were too lazy to remove. So for the first few years as a doctor, Radu Skirtu toiled under those appalling conditions, and since then, he has also worked in some of the toughest places on Earth, including war theaters in Africa, facing threats few other doctors have faced. All of which makes Dr. Skirtu uniquely placed when it comes to survival, as there aren't many who share his hellish experience. He is now a hospital surgeon in France, so he went from one of the worst medical systems in the world to some of the best. But when Dr. Skirtu transitioned between centuries, he brought something special along with him. He brought the knowledge of practicing medicine under circumstances that the average doctor in a wealthy country would find nearly impossible. Romania taught him ingenuity and self-reliance. Western Europe gave him world-class equipment, facilities, and modern resources. So while he makes full use of cutting-edge medicine, he also knows how to make do with zero access to sophisticated tests or tools. And that background made him the perfect person to answer all my questions about what to do in an emergency if there were no access to healthcare professionals, temporarily or even permanently. Dr. Skirtu was very patient with the fact that I was a total newbie when it came to medical knowledge, and he was unfailingly generous in sharing what he knew. The most important thing Dr. Skirtu taught me is that you can survive anything, even if your current health is a mess, as long as you do three basic things. Number 1, prioritize. Most of your risk from infectious disease can be restricted to just a few easy-to-dodge threats, like bacteria-caused diarrheal disease, one of the world's top killers, at 1.6 million deaths a year, even in the U.S., where outbreaks follow every major disaster. One of the most effective treatments for which is oral rehydration therapy, which sounds complicated until you realize it's just sugar, salt, and water, mixed in a specific ratio that a patient is asked to drink to balance their fluids and stay alive. And this one in particular hit me hard because this is exactly what could have saved my brother John. Overall, this simple trick saves 2 million lives a year, and it costs just a few cents. Yet, I bet most people don't know about it and will panic once over-the-counter drugs become unavailable. Then there's number 2, keep it simple. Because you don't need an advanced medical degree or a vault full of expensive gear and supplies to save lives. This was something Dr. Skirtu was openly shocked by when he first came to the West, with its emphasis on fragile technology and treatment versus prevention and value. For instance, tendinitis, that's treated with $1,000 cortisone injections in the U.S. when a simple $10 shoe insert works fine. This even happens in survival circles, where many spend tens of thousands of dollars on overpriced equipment, like defibrillators, masks, or stethoscopes, yet don't know how to improvise in a pinch. A fact that quickly could spell your end if it hits the fan and such gear was out of sight or didn't work, like how to make a tourniquet from a tie and spoon, or a bandage and stick that stops heavy bleeding in seconds. How to improvise a splint from a plank, pillow, or rolled-up newspaper. Reattach a tooth with salt water. Safely dress a burn in food wrap or a plastic bag, or modify trousers to accommodate a fracture. all of which are low-tech, scalable, and easy to do. And finally, there's number 3, think long-term. Because studies show us that even a month or more into a catastrophe, deaths are still likely to climb, while the impact of something like an economic collapse, natural disaster, or a new disease can last for years. Raising your odds, something will go wrong. And that's a problem you can easily avoid by focusing on prevention versus reaction, which is something conventional first aid misses entirely. How many first aid guides also cover how to make your own antiseptic and sanitizer, with common ingredients like alcohol or vinegar, which are strong enough to kill salmonella, E. coli, influenza, and more, plus a million other lifesavers. As I learned more and more from Dr. Skirtu and became more and more prepared to rely upon myself if need be in emergencies and disaster situations, I realized that everyone should have the information and the wisdom Dr. Skirtu was showering me with. And so I asked him if he wanted to collaborate with me in getting this goldmine of vital survival medicine info out into the world. That's why, after a lot of coaxing and a bit of emotional blackmail, I at last convinced the good doctor to share his most valued lessons in one in-depth volume. He dedicated himself to saving lives many years ago, and he was willing to work with me to save even more people than he ever could one-to-one by sharing what he knew. So we began to write a course together. He brought his years of medical training, his in-the-trenches skills he developed in Romania and Africa, and his knowledge of medicine as is practiced today in elite facilities in France. For my part, I brought my survival and army experience, plus the dumb questions that anyone outside the medical field would ask. And I made sure the language and concepts in our course would be so simple anyone could understand. I've also proofread everything to clear it of jargon, and personally checked every illustration, image, and diagram to guarantee that even a child could follow it. It took 2 solid months of interviews for us to complete the basics of the course. After that, we all tested it by asking regular people with no medical background to try out the life-saving skills held inside. That way we could see what someone who lacked our inside knowledge would do and improve accordingly. We even posted some of the toughest parts online to gather feedback and ensure even the meanest internet troll gave it a thumbs up, which they did. And the final results of our collaboration turned out better than either of us could have imagined, despite the fact that our expectations were high to begin with. We believe our course is the most comprehensive guide to survival medicine that the world has ever seen. We named it Survival MD, What to Do When There's No Doctor.
The first things that you need to be able to do is to identify when people are in distress. So if we go to page 92, we have how to recognize the signs of medical distress. Pallor, or the pale in appearance look that people can get from blood loss, he has listed as the #1 sign of distress. Weak and rapid heart rate. And one good example of why we need to understand the weak and rapid heart rate is internal bleeding. If you, I don't know, maybe you have a busted open ulcer, or you did get a bullet shot to the abdomen and you think that it's sealed off and you're able to transport, but the reality is that you're bleeding internally, the heart rate will increase, the extremities will start turning pale, and even though the heart rate will be really fast, it'll be weak, like it's struggling because there's not enough blood volume, the pressure's dropping, right? Identifying that, performing the body check is one of the key major steps to fixing things. If you don't know what's broken, how can you know what you need to do to fix it?
And here's what some of my good friends and daily readers from Survivopedia.com had to say about it. This book is a must-read for disaster preparedness. It is clearly written, easy to understand, and extremely informative. I highly recommend Survival MD. Zabian Crosby. I think that everyone in the U.S. should have this manual. Could save your life. Mike Kirsch. Lots of good info in there, not something you can find at Barnes & Noble's. Tanya Say. I am not a doctor, but I do try to manage my own health in view of how big pharma controls a lot of what doctors do and prescribe. I need to learn what I can and now try to do without doctors as much as I can. So Survival MD is huge help in my view. Thank you. Ronald Carrier. And here are just a few examples of what you'll find inside Survival MD. The truth about recovering from illness and injury and what you must do to save yourself. The 3 common herbs that can be used to treat a fever. How to recognize the 3 different types of skin wounds and how to treat each of them. If you get this wrong, a minor injury could be fatal. how to legally stockpile months' worth of antibiotics, painkillers, and meds without refrigeration, including dosage facts and more. That way, you won't run out or accidentally hurt someone you love. A simple trick that could also save you $1,000 a year on average, once you know how. Hint, some meds last for far longer than you'd think. The reason 90% of drugs now used by the U.S. military are expired, following a massive multi-million-dollar trial. How to dry sterilize objects with a towel to make them surgery safe. Build a first aid kit, bug-out bag or hygiene pack, or craft essential items like toilet paper from scratch. 4 subtle signs someone you know is about to break mentally and how to help them recover. How to respond to a heart attack, which is still the leading cause of death in America. How to treat hypothermia or heat stroke, including the body temperature at which death is certain. The secret NASA astronauts use for long-term survival when the nearest hospital is 250 miles away, and while you'll want it, even if you're healthy. How to use a defibrillator or read an ECG, a surprisingly straightforward skill that can improve your survival odds by over 90%. And a huge amount more, since that's hardly scratching the surface of what's inside Survival MD. What are some of the other illnesses and injuries covered by Survival MD? Well, would you know what to do if someone's been stabbed? There are 2 procedures you absolutely must follow right away to give them the best chance at a good outcome. What about if they've been shot? Bullet wounds are often fatal, but if you act fast, you may be able to save a life. How about burn injuries? Do you know how to tell the difference between 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th degree burns? The treatments are different, so it's important to get this right. If you were faced with any of those situations today, you'd probably have no idea what to do. But tomorrow's another story. There's still time to prepare for hundreds of scenarios, any one of which could befall you and your family at any time. Most of the greatest Americans who've ever lived could barely dream of the marvels of modern medicine. They couldn't imagine how easy it is for the average person to access it. We're luckier than the founding fathers and the brave pioneers because we have something they didn't have: knowledge. We have access to much more accurate information about medicine and health based on decades of advanced research and sophisticated scientific studies. So once you're reading the book, you will immediately gain something our forefathers didn't have that will help safeguard your family every day of your life. And you'll also be better equipped to handle emergencies than almost every American alive today who's not a nurse or a doctor or an EMT. Since its release, Survival MD has exploded in popularity, with thousands of reviews like this pouring in. Survival MD is great. 5 stars all the way. Thank you so much. I love how it is organized so the average Joe Blow can be ready to take care of self and family if needed. I am a board-certified neurologist with 34 years of experience. I found the manual to be instructive, well-organized, and well thought out for laypeople as well as health professionals. I would recommend it to anyone. This book is a must-read for disaster preparedness. It is clearly written, easy to understand, and extremely informative. I highly recommend Survival MD. But even then, we still wanted to do better. So we also decided to bundle Survival MD together with several more amazing bonuses to cover the admittedly tiny gaps in knowledge this epic book left behind, and give them to you 100% free. Bonus number 1, 42 first aid secrets hiding in your home. Picture this: someone you know is sick or injured. It could be fatal, and 911 isn't answering. The clock is ticking. You've no equipment. What do you do? Fortunately, rescue is an easy reach, buried right under your nose in the form of everyday objects that also double as life-saving meds. And this amazing report will tell you exactly how to dig those up. Plus, you'll also learn how to seal and disinfect a wound with glue, sugar, clove, mouthwash, or honey, whatever's closest. Heal a burn with toothpaste. Sanitize a cut with kitty litter, or how to quickly turn your clothes into a gas mask. Remove a bee sting with a credit card. Plus 6 amazing ways to save a life with duct tape, such as how to make a stretcher, splint, or even plug a gunshot wound, and more. Next, there's bonus number 2, the Vascular Failure Protocol. Because 157 million Americans already have cardiovascular disease, that's nearly half of us, causing 660,000 deaths in 2020 alone, while giving 83 million of us a 1 in 7 chance of a heart attack this year. A disease that's also at the root of other cruel killers, like high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and more. That's why Dr. Skurtu also created the Vascular Failure Protocol, a heroic 365-page book that covers how to manage these conditions so you can live a healthy life, including a long list of high-effective modern practices, as well as 100 powerful herbal remedies you can prepare as infusions, herbal tinctures, decoctions, and more. And finally, there's bonus number 3, how to live without prescription meds. Because over 131 million Americans depend on at least one prescription med to get by, most of which come with unbearable side effects like pain, fever, bleeding, bowel troubles, or both at once, sweating and trembling, inflammation, fatigue, anxiety issues, insomnia, memory loss, and worse. So what can you do? Simple. Break the chain, or at least give it some well-deserved slack, which is where this easy-to-follow guide can help you by revealing the best natural alternatives to chronic meds with SHTF, including common pills like aspirin, as well as statins, blood thinners, painkillers, anti-inflammatories, and more. 8 life-saving remedies for those with high blood pressure. Which common herb Native Americans use to stop a fatal asthma attack. Plus 10 prescription meds you must stockpile. Survival MD devotes a full 19 pages to listing and explaining every single one, all of which is only available for a short limit of time on this website, since frankly we're not sure we can afford to give them away for long, especially as each bonus is normally sold for $49, and with tens of thousands of orders pouring in, you can see how this quickly adds up. And today, I'm willing to give them to you completely free of charge if you get the Survival MD course right now. But before I tell you how you can do that, let me ask you this. How much is it worth to you to literally never feel all the nerve-wracking stress and uncertainty every time your little one develops a fever or a tummy ache ever again? And knowing that whatever might be heading our way, you and your family will always have on-demand survival doctor knowledge at your disposal, without ever worrying that the system will cave in. Survival MD is, quite simply, an elite training by an unparalleled authority in survival medicine. There is no one in the world more qualified to advise you than Dr. Skurtu. And even if you're completely new to every concept in the book, it's written so everyone can understand. That way, you'll absorb the information easily as you read without having to look anything up. You'll get instant access to all the resources and knowledge, not only to keep your family safe and healthy for the rest of your life, but go through the worst medical crisis our country has ever seen. You'll have the power to handle yourself in any type of disaster, and you'll have the power to shield your family and loved ones, and even to rebuild your community during the worst of times. Because this powerful book can give you all the medical advice you need to help keep everyone healthy and safe, no matter how bad it's going to be. So how much is having this lifestyle knowledge at your fingertips worth to you? Just think about the amount of money you spend right now on everyday things, or the price of a meal at a not-too-fancy restaurant, or the $11,700 on average it'd cost you to stay overnight in a hospital. Heck, even an ambulance trip would cost you $400, while a doctor's appointment could set you back $200. When instead, you could be part of a select few who make a real difference by saving lives and helping others in a crisis after just a few minutes of pleasurable reading, instead of praying for help that never comes or mourning at a funeral. Whenever I showed Survival MD to my friends and readers, I asked them how much they'd pay to have this amazing knowledge in their own homes, and all of them said they'd pay over $1,000. But folks like you and I have never asked for anything we didn't earn. And we certainly don't want a handout. That's why, although I can't just give this book away, it's not going to cost you $1,000, even though I know it's worth at least that. It won't cost you $500 either. Dr. Skurtu and I want to save lives, and that's why Survival MD has to be affordable. And you have to be prepared for more than one possible future, because there's no way to know what's going to happen. You could end up needing this information tomorrow. If that's the case, you'll wish you'd gotten a digital copy you could read right away. But the problem with only having an instant digital copy is, in an emergency, there's no guarantee you'll have access to electricity. So if your phone runs out of battery, you'll regret not having a hard copy. And that's why we decided to offer both a digital version and a paperback edition. So if you're in a rush and want immediate access to the life-saving information in Survival MD, we offer a digital-only version for just $37. And if you want a printed copy and don't mind waiting for a few days, we can ship it to you for the same amount plus shipping and handling. But I understand that most people will want both options, an instant copy along with a hard copy. So if you buy a hard copy now, we'll just give you the digital version for free. But the only way to secure your spot in the program at that price is to click the order button now. I can't guarantee that I can keep this price available for long, especially since we're giving the digital version away for free, along with the 3 amazing bonuses, plus unlimited email support. So don't get mad if you come here in a few days and see that the price has gone back up. And really, the price doesn't even matter. That's because you're covered by Henry Morris's no-question-asked money-back guarantee for 2 whole months. Here's what this is all about. The future may be dangerous and full of risks, but I want you to have 0 risks when you pick up a copy of Survival MD. So with that said, when you get your copy of Survival MD today, you'll also receive 2 full months to test drive the manual before you decide to keep it or not. That means if at any point during the next 60 days you're not completely 100% thrilled, simply send me an email and I'll give you back every cent. And if you bought a digital download, you don't even need to return it. Just keep it as our thank you for you trying it out, and you'll still receive a complete refund. No ifs, no buts. It's that easy. That's my guarantee. This could be one of the most important decisions you ever make, because with the secrets in this book, you'll save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. After all, I've already hinted at how you can save $1,000 on average on your meds alone, simply by using tricks recently adopted by the U.S. military. Plus hundreds of dollars on equipment versus buying a ready-made first aid kit or survival kit. And the gigantic pile of cash you'll save by using homemade remedies versus over-the-counter drugs, like those you'd use to defeat a flu or cold. Finally, even if a medical crisis doesn't happen, and I pray it doesn't, these skills are still priceless. Just picture this. The next time a friend, spouse, or crying child needs your help, from a cut, sprain, or bump on the head, or even something life-threatening like choking or a burn, you'll be able to actually help them instead of gawping at them like a half-wit, like so many others would. It's the same reason 9 out of 10 Americans own a smoke alarm, or buy insurance of any kind, even though most of us will never use it. Because even if you never read this remarkable book, it will always be there for you, on your bookshelf, just in case. In short, you've nothing to lose, so don't delay. Simply click the button below to access your copy of Survival MD and all the great bonuses. You'll then be taken to your order form that's been encrypted with military-level software and 3 kinds of antivirus to keep your details safe. After which, if you select a physical copy, we'll immediately courier it straight to you. But even before you receive it, you'll also be able to access a digital version of your book to check out right away and immediately have on hand in case anything happens. It's that easy. And the way I see it, right now, you have 3 options. Option number 1, do nothing, which is a big mistake, since you've already seen why our health system is deep in the red and how it won't take much to topple it, with lethal results for you, me, and everyone else, whether it's a new outbreak of disease, a natural disaster, or an economic crisis that puts your life at risk. Plus, you've seen how exposed our fragile global supply chain is to disruption, a threat the Pentagon has reportedly flagged as a major national security hazard with 0 results, all of which makes burying your head in the sand a losing strategy. Or you can go for option number 2 and try to do it yourself, which won't work either, since to match Dr. Shkurtu, you'd first need an expensive medical degree, then to know exactly what to prioritize from first-hand experience in the fleet. But let's say you somehow pull it off. After months or years of slogging across country to attend hard-to-reach survival classes, trawling through hundreds of medical books, and countless sleepless nights scouring sources online, which frankly you may not be able to trust, making any knowledge you do gain a horrible gamble. Would it really be worth it? I mean, couldn't your time be better spent, for instance, with the loved ones you want to protect by gaining such knowledge in the first place? Or you can take a simple, straightforward, reliable shortcut by going for option number 3 to take advantage of our generous offer today and join tens of thousands of like-minded people who've already taken the first step to protect themselves, friends, and family against a medical collapse without regret, because all it takes is one bad day. That's why Dr. Shkurtu released his book to help people like you. But we can't do it alone. That's why today you can take part in something great by skyrocketing your self-reliance and helping yourself, loved ones, and even total strangers with this knowledge. Everything you need is in Survival MD. And all you need to do is click the button below before this offer disappears and you lose your chance forever at a huge saving. Since, as I said, we're not sure for how long we can keep this generous offer online. That means it's first come, first serve. And at the rate things are going, it won't be long before stock runs out. Plus, you never know when this controversial video might be taken offline. So don't delay. Say yes to protecting yourself and your loved ones when 911, hospitals, and doctors aren't available. Say yes to thriving through a medical collapse and rising to the top, even as others panic and struggle. Say yes to doing the right thing instead of depending on others for your basic well-being and to protect those you love from harm. And remember, this book, plus all the great bonuses you'll receive, are not available anywhere else. Ultimately, this is about your family, its health, comfort, and its safety. So wouldn't you trade a 30-minute read and a risk-free deal for the chance to live a worry-free life? It's your decision, but I think you already know what needs to be done. Remember, you're getting all of Dr. Skirtu's hard-learned lessons in a beginner-friendly Survival MD package, plus the 3 special reports, along with unlimited access via email for life. All this without risking a dime. So go ahead and click the Buy Now button below. I'll be waiting for you with a special message in the members area, and with another bonus that's too hot to mention here. Still here? Let me answer a few common questions about Survival MD. 1. If Survival MD is so good, why aren't more people using it? There are plenty of reasons for that. First, misinformation and ignorance. Not everyone is like you and me. For example, it's common knowledge that many members of the youngest generations expect to have everything handed to them. They feel entitled because modern society has taught them to be helpless and dependent. And when the world comes crashing down around them and no one is propping them up anymore, many of them will not survive. And I hate to say this, but there are some ways in which a lot of the so-called preppers are just like them. Second, it's the fear factor. Most people think this is too complex to follow. They are partly right because most books and survival journals overcomplicate it. The fact is, survival medical knowledge is easy to understand when you have the proper manual. 2. How hard will this be to follow? Survival MD is a straightforward, simple, and easy read with a thorough table of contents, so you can jump straight to what you need. As I said, most patriots who stay ready for SHTF events have no idea what to do in the event of a medical emergency, if there were no way to see a doctor right away. They don't know how to perform a body check as a precursor to figuring out what's wrong, despite the fact that it's very easy to do once you know how. They don't know how to apply a cast to a fractured limb, or how to elevate someone's condition using the Glasgow Coma Score. They don't know what a wooden belly is, or how to identify it, or what to do if someone has it. But anyone could pick this information up very fast once they have Survival MD on their shelf. 3. But what about the savings? We created Survival MD mainly with medical self-sufficiency and survival in mind, and as far as we know, it's the most comprehensive training program of its kind. But the beauty of it is you also start saving money the second you start applying the knowledge, tips, and tricks you find inside. It all depends on what you decide to do, but you're looking at $1,000 a year or more in savings on over-the-counter drugs alone. 4. I don't have a lot of medical knowledge. Will this work for me? Not only will it work for you, but it's probably the best kind of medical survival manual you could hope for. That's because you can make use of it starting today, providing a healthy safety net for you and your family. 5. Can I use it for my entire family? We don't suggest that you rely on it alone if professional healthcare is available. That being said, the Survival MD manual can definitely provide you with all the knowledge needed to protect and safeguard your family's health and well-being if, God forbid, you find yourself in a difficult spot and first responders are nowhere in sight. Is this really risk-free? Yes, as I said, you're covered by my 60-day, no-questions-asked money-back guarantee. If for any reason you want to return the program, you have 60 full days to do so. Even more, you can keep the digital copy as a thank you for trying out Survival MD. No hassles, no gimmicks, no hard feelings. That's why it's crucial that if you decide to try Survival MD, you do it fast. So secure your copy now. Exchange 30 minutes of watching a simple video for a lifetime of health, safety, and savings. Click the Order Now button below and let Survival MD give you the peace of mind you deserve. Thank you for watching this presentation. I'm Henry Morris.